Okay. Uh, this is a bit random. Alright? It's very random. I just recreated the microphone and suddenly it works. I think I need to update my Linux because this is a bit too much. Okay, it's fine. I don't really care anymore. It's just the filters. The filters get all knocked off. It's very annoying. Let me just get the noise suppression. It just gets me all off kilter, when sort of thing happens. Where was I? Yes, I've been sick. When you are sick, everything sort of gets, unbalanced. You get unbalanced, you don't really know where you are anymore. And yeah, I kind of stopped working on the code a bit. I actually worked on it while I was a little bit sick. That probably wasn't the best idea because I think I just got sicker. What I was going to show you was what I needed to install in order to get the sort of loader working, because in order to run, I'm using Raylib to do the rendering, and in order for Raylib to work, you need to use a very sort of specific set of bindings, right? Otherwise, because this doesn't come with Lua, as you probably are aware, I had to compile Raylib Lua. It was not too difficult, I think, mainly because I'm in Gen 2, so I already got all the libraries. But the problem I had was somewhere in here, in Logit, you need to modify a particular makefile, and you need to just get a certain build instruction. You need to enable some flags, otherwise this is not going to work well. That was the adventures of getting the renderer to start cooperating, and it doesn't do anything too crazy right now. I got it only rendering some transparent cubes, but this is the beginning of the world, right? Of a viewport into the world, so you can see what is happening. And it will be the subject of our next video, will be to show a sort of simulated Minecraft with a robot running tests. Currently though, we are very far away from having anything functional. Currently, how should I put it? I'll just show you the code. I think it's simpler to see it that way. We got some basic rendering code. We got some basic positioning code to add blocks and lines and rectangles and sort of cubes, rectangular prism sort of stuff. And I wanted to get something to import the schematics that we use, in buildings inside of the robot code. And I don't think I have it set up properly here. We can check it out. We can look at it a little bit harder, but I don't think that it is working at this moment. I copied some code over from the original file still here from, I think it's not world schematic. No, I deleted the file from here. It's just a build interpreter, right? Here the sort of meta schematic sort of thing. This is all going to need to be changed, obviously. The way we sort of load schematics, it's necessarily simple, because in order for the robots to work, we cannot consume too much RAM. it's got some design flaws that I'm not really liking, especially in the way it sort of constructs itself. It's a bit confusingly laid out. Well, that doesn't matter too much right now. I would like to work on the blocks themselves, right? Because right now it renders everything. Everything is a red block. We have some sort of default, some stub sort of objects here. But the objective of this stream would be to do something very boring, which is to add data to the blocks. I think we'll need to add is something like color data, right? So that when we render out the blocks, when you render out the blocks with the renderer, different blocks will have different colors. I'm sort of not wanting to put actual textures in. I wanted to afterwards, in the back side of the render, add some bloom and try to do a sort of cyberpunk aesthetic to this. It's still a bit far in the future, but textures are a pain in the ass to manage. So if I could just do some colors for each kind of block, I think that would be quite nice. So that's what we are going to be working currently. It's blocks. Oops. It's blocks. So I think I'll just create a block.lua file, transfer the things over from the old definition, and we can start working from there. Of course, we'll have to now import it in, but that's not much of work. I guess I could take this as an opportunity to explain the code we have written so far. We have, of course, evolved things. Before we didn't even have the renderer, but it's nothing too complicated, right? I decided, instead of having a sort of multi-reference array, right? Instead of having an array that is an array of an array of an array, and so on and so on and so on. For the blocks, I laid everything out in a flat array with a certain. I will just show you the sort of mathematical function to this conversion, which is to just map the three-dimensional elements into a one-dimensional array. The problem with this approach, of course, is that you need to know the array size. But since we are defining the worlds in a very specific manner, it doesn't really matter. Otherwise, this is very simple code, right? You're just using that function, that little piece of mathematics, to force these 3D coordinates into a single index array, and then we just go through the array, we separate things out again, we find the x, the z, and the y, and we just render it out into the ArrayLib environment. It's nothing too complex happening here. So yeah, we'll just work on some blocks. I sort of 2 weeks ago, I think that was the last stream, I was thinking about how to make things more interesting, and then I got sick, and now I'm doing a very sort of impromptu stream, just to have something out there, I guess, just show that I'm still working on things, but it isn't something. Oh, the microphone is kind of weird. I just noticed. I don't know if I can fix the microphone right now. I'll try and shut some things off and try to be very careful when I'm speaking. But I'm not sure if there's an easy fix. I think I simply need to update my system. I got some old packages because OBS wasn't being like this before, so I don't really know now. Excuse me. We're going to be creating some blocks. And the thing I would like to add immediately, I would say now, is a color. And I think it's relatively easy to define, right? The colors are defined using the Rayleigh little thing, and the runner itself, the sort of thing that you have to compile the Rayleigh blue bindings, already introduce immediately in the runner and sort of meta object. I don't know how it is implemented. I didn't look at the code, but this sort of RL table then allows us to mess with the Rayleigh objects like colors and vectors and all that. It uses the Luajit FFI. You are forced to use Luajit with this. And Luajit is kind of an annoying thing to work with. At least with the code I have right now, because it's all to the most recent Lua standard. And there's a difference in standard between Lua and Luajit. I hope that the microphone has been corrected. It's not corrected. It doesn't want to correct itself. I don't know why. I don't know why it's being so annoying today, but it decided to be like this. That's what I get for not updating my system. Whatever. I think that, for example, the microphone I have, the headset, is working a little bit better. But we'll deal with this for 40 more minutes, and then we'll go back home. Doesn't really matter. Of course it matters, you know, but it's these sort of things we tell ourselves to feel a little bit better about our incompetence. It's to say that things don't matter that much. The problem with color definitions, I'll need a color picker eventually. That's gonna be annoying. But now we can define things like actual dirt, right? We probably need a new... How do we want to do this? This will have a name. That will be simple, right? The color and all that. You know, that seems quite understandable for me. So imagining we want to define a cobblestone block utilized in the builds, we'll need a function for this, obviously. Now, I didn't want to just talk about code all day, but knowing that the microphone is crapping itself quite a bit, and that myself, I'm not in the best of moods, I don't know if I'll be able to say anything too interesting. You know, I guess it's sort of a human nature to become sort of depressed like this when we get hit by things outside our control. We sort of have a pace, right? When people are capable of doing things, it can be anything. It can be coding, it can be streaming, it can be a bunch of things. You know, people are reliant on a bunch of things that are already there, that are already functioning. Sometimes more obvious things, you know, like the fact that they, I don't know, like they are able to speak English and to read and all that. And only having these very basic things are they then able to do more complex things. Right? There's always a foundation, an emotional, a psychological foundation for the way things are. If someone is very deeply mentally ill, it doesn't matter how genius they are or how capable they are, that they will not be able to function. I don't know why I'm sort of, you know, having this sort of mental breakdown just after being sick, but I think it's something that happens very often with me. I'm very sort of temperamental. I'm very reliant on my flow state to keep me going, and when I get, you know, knocked out, when I, you know, get sort of, you know, out of the horse or fall out of the wagon, whatever sort of idiomatic expression you want to use, I just seem to become very incapable of doing anything. So I admit outright that I'm very emotionally unstable right now. Not that I am usually, not already emotionally unstable, but even more than usual. I guess there's all this sort of relationship we have with the world. There's a lot of philosophical discussions that we can have here, right? We have this sort of relationship with ourselves and our environment, and maybe we are this relationship, and we cannot escape the fact that we really don't have control over things. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you, what would be the best way to approach all these situations. I'm just paranoid that the microphone is not picking up. It stopped. No, wait. It didn't stop, but it is dysfunctional. It is very much dysfunctional. Just like myself, I guess. I don't know how much that I say is getting picked up by the microphone, but something will. I could have tried and restarted the computer. It doesn't really matter. Better days will come, right? That's sort of the attitude we sometimes need to have to ourselves. This is kind of boring, just programming a bunch of blocks. But this reminded me of something, right? We'll need something to control behavior. We need a function that controls the behavior of the block, right? For example, when the robot wants to interact with the block inside this virtual environment, there will be something that needs to control what sort of responses it gets. So we need to, right click. And sometimes breaking needs to be overloaded, right? When you break stone, you get cobblestone. You don't get stone back unless you have a silk touch pickaxe, but that's usually the exception, right? That's usually the exception. All right, that's a bit of behavior, right? And then we'll have to have interactive behavior, or when we're looking at the simulation from the viewer. I think that would be the best. And would it be alright for that to be a function, or now we need to create another sort of object to hold viewport behavior or something like that? Right? Maybe something like this. Well, there's something to it, right? It will show you some block info or whatever. Truly not inspired today, am I? I will see if as the week goes on. If we have stream next week, I don't know. If I fix the problems I'm having with the microphones and pulse audio in general, and also if I sort of understand a little bit better what I'm doing, and if I get a bit, more focused up once again, because I might not be able to. I have all this sort of, let's call them philosophical thoughts about how streams should be, or how streams are, or how streams work, and how people do them. I have all this sort of theories, but in the end, those theories don't seem to save me in any sort of meaningful way. Not just on streams, right? I would say in real life as well. I have all this sort of meta knowledge or attempts at knowledge about how things work or should not work, and then I seem to not be able to act upon it, or maybe the theories themselves are incorrect and things don't seem to work out. I don't know. I guess I'm just slightly depressed. Besides, it seems like Piastri is not going to win the Formula 1 championship, so it seems like everything is going south for me. I need to think things over a bit. And that Japanese dubbing thing, you know. Fortunately, that the microphone is working correctly. But, you know, I sound like a child speaking. I mean, in English, I think I probably sound like a child as well, but for completely different reasons. It's not that, you know, I put a lot of thought into translations. I then have to transcribe it using some less than exact tooling. Is this a brown? I think this will result in a brown color. Don't quote me on that. You know, it seems that I think about things, and it doesn't really matter what I think. What's an interesting block to put in? I guess the saplings, right? How is it defined? I think it's defined as oak sapling. Like this. You wouldn't want a block now, would you? You wouldn't want a block. So maybe we can pass more things and have a shape argument, right? This is the problem with definitions. It's the problem with definitions. Now, there's so much code, and the code, you know, seems very useless and it seems very boring. That's why most people, most sort of coding streamers, they don't really, you know, stream a project or whatever. They try and find interesting topics and then they prepare the topic, you know, minimally, and they just present the topic, you know, this library or this article or whatever, and they just go out and they read things, and that's, you know, somewhat interesting. Also with things like you know, like gaming, especially things where you can very easily see the skill of the person that's performing them, like Trackmania, and even then, with its limitations. I guess I mean, with all this stuff I'm saying, I'm in a bit of a crisis right now. I'm in a bit of a personal crisis. Things are just falling apart a little bit for me. Besides blocks, what I would like to do, because I completely sort of forgot what I wanted to be doing here. I guess we can see if we can, you know, get the parse native schematic thing working. I don't even know how I implemented this. We can just try. Just try and get a schematic here, you know. And see if this will work. I don't even know how the dictionary is supposed to work anymore. I think it's something like this, right? I can't believe I got so exhausted by being, you know, it wasn't particularly easy sickness, but it wasn't, you know, particularly bad either. But I can't believe how sort of floaty, airy, sort of unfocused, you know, I feel. Okay, let's see if this will render something out or not. This is using blocks at new. Where am I adding the blocks? I'm adding them here in world creation, so maybe this will work. Parse native schematic dictionary. And iterator, I think, can remain nil. Can it remain nil? Is it being? No, it's not being utilized at the moment, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, do you reckon this will render? I don't think it will. I don't think it will because we define a size for the thing, and that size might not be correct. But we can just add something here. This is completely new ground for me. I don't know what sort of error this will print out. And there we have module block not found. That's great. That's great. Did I misname something? A possibility. Ah, it's because I'm not returning. There you are. That was simple. And now, try and run the code. It crashes because default doesn't exist. Sure. Okay. I can just. Maybe I'm just not an interesting person. I really should consider that sometime. Maybe I should just focus on university, and I don't know. I sometimes have this sort of negative thoughts every once in a while, especially when things are not going very well. One could say that I'm very emotional. They wouldn't be incorrect. Complaining about types now, so we're getting close. We're getting closer to what we want to do. So, what was the error? Expected the table and got a string. I wonder why. How are the tables formatted anyway? I get it. It's supposed to be something like this. It was human error, I think. Yeah, it was human error. So let's see. Now it's expecting a string and not getting a string. That's very, very fun. It gets a slice, it gets a column. Oh, because I have wrote it as str and it should be column. There's a bunch of. It was written while I was kind of ill, and there you are. It's a black viewport. That's probably something. That's probably some sort of progress. I am not sure what it did. It added the blocks on X, on Z, on Y. Are we incrementing the X index? That might be the problem. No, the X index is never implemented. That might be the reason why. Okay, I don't think the result's going to be too different though. It really wasn't. No, but the colors should be getting added correctly. So I'm not really understanding what is the problem that we have. Ah, there we are. That's the problem. Because it's expecting a different type of dictionary. If I simply do a little trick here and I say that this will be a block default, will it change our result? It did. I'm a genius. Dear 1 or 2 or -1 viewers on here, I'm a genius. There's this misplaced block that it seems that I somewhat know how to code, even if I don't know how to get, audio to work out. I could also try to go to Wayland and maybe Wayland, if I get dbuzz and everything working correctly, maybe that will fix my audio issues. But that's just Linux. That's just Linux. Maybe, I don't know. Listen. Whoops. Okay. We'll look at the code a bit later. I'm here on Gentoo, as if I knew what I was doing. I sometimes know what I'm doing, okay? Sometimes I feel like I know what I'm doing. But it also gives me so many problems sometimes, I'm not sure why I'm having the audio issues. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it's not a microphone. I'm quite sure that if I went over to Arch or whatever, I wouldn't be struggling with this. I have also way too many packages that I have not been updated, because updating them on a Ryzen 5 3400 is a bit of a chore. Okay, doesn't matter. Operating system aside, we got this recognized in the schematic. Okay, so that's progress. And I'm sure if I added the definition to the cobblestone block, I could make it go a different color. My only question is why we have this block here. It's my only question, because if you look at the code, it's a flat sheet, right? So it's a flat sheet of box, but there's that little uppy bit. So I don't know where I messed up in order for that to work. I think it would be one of those things where you have to look at the code quite carefully, and sometimes that's quite boring. It has something to do with the way the Y index is found. Let me just print it out. I don't want to spend too much time debugging. I'll then jump and try and get the sort of dictionary definitions to work. But let me just see if I can do some blockhead debugging and understand why that block is getting drawn the way it is. Okay, now, oops. I forgot I don't have history on, what is this? Alacrity. Let me just use a less bourgeois terminal emulator. Let me see. With logs. Okay, 111111111 seems fine. Okay. Why is it there though? If everything is correct in that end, this is not good. I know where the error is now, at least. The error needs to be in the rendering part of the code, in these silly functions. Okay, I don't want to look at this. I'm physically putting my hands on my head. I don't want to look at this part of the code right now, because I know it will be quite boring to look at. So let's connect the dictionary up and let's try to get different colors showing up on the screen. That should be relatively easy. I say relatively, because it won't be that easy, but I just need to connect this sort of non-blocks definition and connect it into the schematic, into the dictionary in this file. I need to take these definitions from this file and put them in that file. Fortunately, that's relatively easy with Lua. Usually, for example, in languages like Java, you can only have one public class. The one file can only, give one access point, let us say, into another file. But with Lua, it's such a dumb little scripting language. You can actually return several things together, especially if you use a table, and then we just unpack the table. So I can just bring the known blocks over, and I'll have them on the other side. I simply need to now bring the import, get here the known blocks, and I use table.unpack. This will take the table and flatten it out into the sort of, what's his name? There was a technical name for this sort of things. It's a tuple. It turns the table into a tuple and allows you to just get things in a very convenient manner. Now, if I just add a function to known blocks, that will sort of match dictionary entries or something like that, then we will be Gucci. Yeah. For now, I'll just say label non-blocks, get by label, and so that's actually quite annoying. We need to iterate with a for loop. I mean, I say it's annoying, it's quite simple, but I always want things to be even simpler, I feel like whenever I need to pull out a loop, I feel like I fail somewhat. I think my brain's a bit too cooked by the clean coding lobby, and I think that for loops are forbidden. But I am always afraid to use for loops. So self, there you are. And now we just need to find the block that has the label, that matches label, and return the block. And that was quite simple. That was actually quite simple. Otherwise, we need to return some sort of default block, right? But this should work. Yeah, this should be amazing. So we get self 1. I hope this works. Sometimes tables are a bit iffy in Lua. So now if I go here in the dictionary and C is equal to known blocks, get by label, cobblestone, wait for it, I should have known. I should have known. 85. Why is this not working? Ah. Nobody saw anything. There you are. But the color did not change. I know why. It's because in the renderer I have it to always draw things with the color red. So if I change this now to actually use the block color, it might be different. Where is the color? There we are. So block color. I'm a genius. I'm a genius. Now it's blue. Was it supposed to be blue? I think it was supposed to be gray. But amazing. Good job. That's impressive that it's blue. I say impressive in a negative sense. I don't think it should be blue. Cobblestone should be 33, 33, 33. Which is gray, right? I think 33, 33, 33 is a sort of gray. So this is not the most positive thing. It might be returning the default. I'm not sure. We'll see. It's very easy to see if it's returning the default or not, because we can just add a sort of line of, for example, B, and we now say B is equal to non-blocks, get by label, a block that doesn't exist, and this will give us the default color, and we'll very easily see if we are wrong or not. Okay, so it is not finding troublesome. This blue is the default color. Well, that's progress, I would say. And in fact, if I change the default color, the color we are getting should change. It's a bit of a debugging 101, right? Yeah, okay. It's just using the default color. Weirdly enough, we found a very funky color like this. It's a nice sort of emerald green. I don't really know how to describe it. Feels something out of Lovecraft. Okay, so we probably got a bug somewhere. In sense, I miswrote the find the block code. It's also possible that using self here, this, of course, iPairs doesn't work. iPairs doesn't work. Give me a second. iPairs doesn't work because this has non-numeric indexes. Because Lua will not do iPairs unless the thing is a pure numeric array. Because we now have a function in non-blocks. We cannot use iPairs. Fortunately, there is a way out. It's just a bit, it's not pretty. I admit it's not pretty, but there is a way out. Block equals on block. Okay, but now if this doesn't work, I'll be very sad. Guess what? I'm very sad. If I change this is how it should look, right? No. Okay, I don't know what is wrong then. I thought I knew what was wrong. I don't know what is wrong. Wait a second. That's part of the problem. Okay, didn't change anything. But if this was wrong in the sense it's not getting blocks, then it should be failing in some other unforeseeable way. So exactly, let us take it a bit slower now. What is not working here? What sort of unspeakable stupidity did I do this time? Let me add another block, why not? I mean, these sort of schematics are useful in the sort of human readable sense. When you have few blocks, but when you start to have a lot of blocks, they are not that readable. That's another thing that needs to change, quite frankly, but I still haven't come to a decision in how I should change things. So we'll see. Oh wait a second. No, I'm getting the right table loaded in. we get two colors at least. No, but I get it. I get it now. For the other bug that we have been having of these sort of over blocks, blocks that are appearing in the wrong place, it's because I explained this at the beginning of the stream. The way we are flattening the sort of 3D space into a unidimensional array, we need to know the precise dimensions of the thing we are holding in, right? And we are not really extracting that, we're just making up 24, 24, 24. So we try to get something with the wrong dimensions in, it acts a bit weird. That's also not too difficult to add. But first I'd like to get the colors working. I have no idea why the colors are not working. No, I get it. Okay, don't look at me. Don't blame me. I totally did not forget to comment. It doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter anyway. I forgot to comment the sort of default behavior of just get the default block, but that didn't matter. That didn't matter at all. Okay, it gets a character. It indexes the dictionary. That should be the block. It adds the block. It fails. I mean, it fails. The color is wrong. But at least now, if I change that number, that's great. That's amazing. That's progress. We got a black screen. We're getting somewhere with this. If I change this to 3 now, also a blank screen. If I change it 1 again. Okay, so that's doing something. That's good to know. But it seems like the other blocks are not really working. Not quite sure where I'm being stupid or not. I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never know. Color. I do this all the time. I'm not returning the object. Okay, good. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay. That's why languages like Java or C or any real programming language. Okay, look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. This is the problem with having objects that you obtain from doing deep copies, but not having any way to make sure you're actually generating the objects that you want. It works. I'm not that stupid. The rest of the code was fine. You don't know how over the course of the development of this, how many times I done this let us call it. Okay, I mean, and with this we are, I would say, nearing the end of the stream for what it's worth, or what it was worth. And I'm actually impressed that we managed to progress something in the renderer. I mean, it was something very simple, but I was fully expecting getting zero progress today. I'm actually somewhat happy that I managed to do something. That's healing as well, you know. That's healing. That's recovering. Okay, what can I do? You know, one last thing before before finishing the very interesting Steam we've been having. Not really. I don't have anything I want to do. I feel exhausted for some reason. Yeah, you know, good recovery. Good recovery. Um, getting slowly getting better, but still not. Excuse me. Still not fully good. But heck, you know, we got something done today, and that was great. Hopefully, next time I find a way to get the microphone to work correctly for once, and hopefully I'm even more capable, even more recovered that I've been today. That being said, you know, thank you for sticking with me, for sticking through this terrible audio situation and my sort of scatterbrained commentary and scatterbrained coding. I hope that I don't get sick again, and I hope that next time we'll get the improvement that we all deserve. With that being said, see you.